All right, so this is video number 6 in the historical bike build, and we're going to try to mount and fabricate some of these factory disc brake mounts onto the rims or the forks that we have to deal with, which are these. These were pirated off of the Dr. Pepper bike and are the standard clamp overhead brakes, and this is the solution I came up with. I fabricated a mounting bracket, and this is the standard brake that you can order off of Amazon. I'll put the link, and then I just fabricated this this bracket here. So this video is going to be showing how I did that. There is a lot of work involved, and I have my grinder as usual. So if you guys have ever seen my videos before, I use the grinder quite often. And these forks were not designed to have the disc type of brake system, so I had to grind out a piece for the disc to actually mount in there. Otherwise it would have been rubbing up against the inside of the fork. So I'll fill that in later with a little piece of sheet metal, but just had to make a little bit of room up front in order to get this rim in there. And I just got this rim used. I think I paid, I don't know, 20 bucks for it or something. And like I said in the intro, I bought the disc brake assembly, the actual brake part that pinches over the disc, just off of Amazon. Just bought one of them because I'm only going to put disc brakes in the front. But if you saw the previous videos, I wanted to use these forks because these have a little bit of shock in them, a little bit more absorption of you know, the ups and downs and the vibration that comes from the road when you're riding these motorized bikes on the streets. So they were not designed to have this modern kind of braking system, and I haven't had a bike that has had one, so I just decided to throw it on here and see what happens. There is a lot of fabrication involved with this, and if anybody has these disc brakes, you'll know that the tolerance in the brake itself, the part that actually goes around the disc, is pretty tight. So it takes a lot of going back and forth in between and getting the right alignment on these. You can adjust it a little bit, but it's best up front to have it pretty close to where you want it. So there's a lot of eyeballing, there's a lot of spinning of the wheels, and there's a lot of fabrication going back and forth. I'm showing you the actual brake there. And sorry about the low light level of the video. I'm going to try to clear that up in editing, but I shot this at night in the garage. So what you're seeing here is just the first little arm that came off, and I just wanted to put it in place just to see, you know, if this thing was even workable. I had no idea whether or not this was going to work. My plan was just to return it to Amazon if it didn't work, and to go back to the regular caliper style brake. So what I'm doing is I'm just using angle iron that was from a piece of bed frame, which is just in my scrap pile. It's always nice to have a little scrap pile of just stuff that you can go back to and use for your little projects. But you're going to see in this video just a lot of fabrication and just pieces, parts, very low cost, very common tools that you can use, which is the theme for all of my stuff, and especially this bike build. So there's two little screws that come on the actual brake itself. And what I'm trying to do here is I have the upper screw is already attached, and I'm working on the balance of the bottom. And there's going to be a little hole that I drilled in pieces of this sheet metal, angle iron, I guess you would call it, from the leftover bed frame, which that stuff is really sturdy. So it's comes in handy a lot, and it's really easy to weld. It has like a high carbon content. But anyhow, the idea is just to kind of go back and forth on this and put it in place every once in a while, check the rim, see if it spins properly, etc. And what I decided to do is to cut a few other little support pieces, and they all kind of like support each other, because braking takes a lot of power, and you don't want this thing to rack at all or twist. And I tried to overbuild this as much as possible, and I think it came out pretty well. And I'm just using this little hand drill here and some pretty commonly available drill bits. You'll hear just a little bit of a rattling in there. So you just got to be patient with this. If it's rubbing just a little bit, just nudge it on one side or the other. There we go. You can adjust it and fine tune it with the Allen wrenches. You can actually bring in and out the actual braking pad that's in the pincer part of the brake. So what I'm doing here is I'm just removing any excess from the fork itself, because I'm going to be welding, these little pieces that I'm fabricating to that side of the fork. So, whenever you're welding, you want to have a nice clean surface. Doing the same thing here to this little piece of metal. That's actually part of the bracket for the brake assembly. Get off any kind of oil for sure. Any kind of oil, dirt, grime. I like to get it down to nice shiny metal. That makes it have a really good connection when you weld. Just doing a little tack here, and then I'm going to move over. So I had to break out my hand light there, and it was kind of dark out there. I should have had better lighting. But when you weld these pieces, keep in mind that the welder is actually melting the metal and creates a lot of heat. So you want to kind of space these welds out, go back and forth, so one side doesn't get too hot, and it'll actually bend or warp to that one side if you don't go back and forth. So you'll see that I'm actually kind of going in there and what looks like spot welding, here and there. That's on purpose, because the metal that the bike frames and the bike forks, all that stuff is made of, is a lot softer and lighter. They do that on purpose to keep the bikes probably lower cost for manufacturing, but also just to keep them lighter. And in comparison, the metal I'm using for the bracket, which is, again, that just old bed frame, is a lot heavier, a lot denser, a lot more carbon in there. And, that poses a little bit of a challenge when you're welding two types of metals that are not similar together. You want to focus most of the heat on the higher gauge metal, the thicker gauge metal. And you want to be careful on when you're welding on the bike frame itself, including the forks. If you stay too long in one spot, or if you put too much heat in one spot on the metal of the bike frame, you can actually burn through there, and you do not want to do that. It'll compromise the integrity, and it's just a waste of time. So when you're seeing me go back and forth, that's the idea. I didn't want to overheat. I didn't want to create a problem with burning through the metal of the bike frame. And also, I did not want to warp, this brake system too far out of the way that I couldn't correct later with shims, and with adjusting the Allen wrenches in the adjustment part of the brake itself, because that would have been really just it would have ruined it. There's only so much you can do with compensating and adjusting with the brake unit. So again, spinning the wheel a lot. I edited this video quite a bit, but there is a lot of spinning that wheel just to make sure that everything is still in alignment or pretty close to alignment. So I'm just breaking out the grinder again here and cutting off a little excess piece of that angle iron that I thought was just too much. We didn't need all that sticking out. Could have cut somebody or something. And also just kind of cleaning up the weld. If you're not a good welder, like I am not a good welder, and my equipment is really just a very, very, very basic stuff. It's that flux core welder. Spits out a lot of slag and little pieces, parts. You're going to need some kind of grinder or something. You're not going to just be able to clean that stuff up so it looks presentable with a brush. It's just not going to happen. So, in my videos, I spend a lot of time with this grinder, just kind of like, paying attention and, giving these welds a lot of time. And that's the reason why. It's just my lack of skill with the welder, as well as just the quality of what you get. And that flux core welder, I think that's just inherent with that type of stuff. I think it spits out a lot of little nuggets and little slag that you just got to clean off. Well, that's going to be it for this installment. Hey, I really appreciate your guys' support. Like and subscribe, and I appreciate your feedback. I enjoy making these videos, so thank you so much for watching.